Hey now, and how are you doing? Want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Really, I have a lot of friends that I know for a lot of years, and this is one of them. I adore Danielle. I can't wait for you to adore her as well. She just is she's a spiritual leader. She's a mom. She's a wife. She's just amazing because, actually, we'll go into the story. So let me just introduce Danielle. Danielle, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful, David. Thank you for having me.
Well, I couldn't wait. We've been trying to do this for a while, and then I
Mhm.
had the pause on the podcast, so I'm really glad that you we were able to find some time today to do what we do.
I know I feel like everything just kind of aligned today because, like you said, we've been trying to do this for a couple years now, actually. We've been
Yes.
trying to get together and then everything just kind of fell into place this week. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's what right? We always talk about it, and we'll talk about some of the work that you do. That's really what it is. It's the
Mhm.
alignment of what you do. It's about alignment. So why
Mhm.
don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay, sure. So, like you said, I'm a spiritual entrepreneur. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I do everything. But as far as work goes, I the best way I could explain it, because in the spiritual industry, we all do so much. We all have this menu of crap that we have, and everybody does so much. But basically, besides doing readings and all of that, I train intuitives, I practice them, and I help them start their businesses. So that's the main gist of my job. That's what most people will find me for, besides readings and all of that stuff. Although I love doing them, my heart is really in teaching and mentorship.
Yeah, no, I know that. I know, when we met, we actually met with the recovery coaching, right? You always
Yes.
like to pour back into your people.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things that I love about you is, even in a reading, and again, I've been the recipient of some of the knowledge at times, and it really is heartfelt what you do. And I've also been the recipient of some business advice.
Hmm.
And that's part of the story that I'd love to hear about because you didn't just wake up one morning, this is what I was. You sort of knew about it your whole life. And you've also overcome some things
Hmm.
by from learning about spirit and then also encompassing your life with spirit.
Yeah, so my business kind of evolved with me over the years. I've been doing this work full time professionally for over 14 years now. Um, And yeah, in the beginning, I started off like doing readings and things like that. And I met you during recovery coach training. And the reason it's so funny because the reason I did the recovery coach training is because I was getting so many people in my readings who needed help with some form of addiction or something along those lines, and I wanted to be able to help them better. And some people say, well, don't you just get all your information from spirit? And yeah, you do. But if it's not in your frame of reference, like you can, your
Right.
information is very limited as to what you could understand. So I'm very intentional with the things that I learn and the things that I attend, the classes that I go to, and, the books I read and the music I listen to. I'm very intentional with all of that, and it all has a purpose. I believe that causes like the forward movement. So that's why I went to the recovery coach training, because I wanted to learn more, because I wanted to be able to understand my clients on a different level, because it's nothing that I ever had to deal with
Mm.
myself within myself. So your story gets expanded through the people that you meet, the stories that you hear, and the things that you learn. So that's why I dove into that. And that's how I've been throughout my whole business, basically. So it's
Well,
been really
I think
cool.
that's part of it. So it's because you had mentioned it,
Mhm.
when we talk about mediumship, everybody thinks sort of like TV or, the Sixth Sense, like that, you see images. It's not clear words. It's not, when spirit's talking to you, and I'll put that in,
Mhm.
you know, I'd like you to explain it. It's
Mhm.
not words. It's not like they're writing you a book.
I
They're showing you,
wish.
yeah, right. That would be easy. But
So
could you,
easy.
could you explain some of that little process? Because there's a lot of people who don't,
Sure.
I don't care if they don't believe about it, but what you get so they can understand it and maybe open themselves up to. starting the process?
Sure. So it's different for everybody. So what I say might um not resonate for everybody because it is different. It's a different feeling for everyone. But generally, how we receive information from spirit, we have all of our clairs, the clairvoyance, clairaudience, all of them. So they're basically our senses that we have. So if we see something from spirit, it's like, we get an image in our mind, and it's up to us to interpret that image and how we perceive it, because spirit gives it to us in a way that we could explain and we could understand, so that we could properly translate the message to our clients. And if for clairaudience, like to hear spirit, spirit doesn't, like you said, spirit doesn't speak to us in full sentences. We usually get maybe like 2 to 3 words and a feeling that goes along with it, or something like that. You might smell cigar smoke or something, and then our feeling goes like, "Oh, I feel like this guy loves smoking his cigars," or I feel like this person was allergic to cigar smoke, or I feel like cigar smoke is the reason this person passed away. Like, there could be so many different reasons, but it's our interpretation and how we perceive it that gives the person the message. So a lot of people aren't getting clear messages and sentences like we speak to each other, so they think that they're not getting anything, but really they're getting so much. You just have to go a little deeper and a little further to get the message and see how you feel. You have to be very conscious of your body, the information that you get, how you feel. Because when you sit down with someone to do a reading, all of your own thoughts, feelings, and emotions are gone. And then you're receiving that of the person that you are sitting with. So you're picking up on their energy. So that's why the mindset work is also, I know you're really into mindset work too. You've worked so much on yourself. I
Yeah.
work so much on myself. Um, over the years, and the mindset work is so important, because if there's a trigger that is really, you're really sensitive to, and this person maybe went through it, then you're receiving that trigger in your reading, and either you think you're not getting information and you don't say it, or you're too triggered to even speak it, or you start going into your own experience about it. And when you're doing a reading, people aren't sitting with you for your opinion, they're sitting with you for intuitive advice. So if you can't separate your own shit from giving the message, even if you don't agree with
Right.
the message, then, that's something that needs to be trained and worked on.
Yeah, no, 100% because you can't have that filter.
Right.
And like it's like when you're sitting with a client, mediumship or not, you're not supposed to have judgments. Whatever they
Right.
do, try to be as non-committal as possible, because
Mhm.
that way you can have, that's actually how you become more powerful. Uh,
I agree with that. And and as far as the mediumship go, like mediumship aside, like, you see what comes through and you give the messages, but when it comes to psychic work and just connecting with your higher self, and connecting to help somebody, what's really important to do, which I don't see a lot of people teaching in it. I feel like it needs to be taught more, but I don't feel like a lot of people know to do this. But I work a lot with directed intuition. And the difference with that is directed intuition is more giving somebody something to leave with. Like some people, they sit with you and they're like, oh my God, that resonated so much. Oh my God, that's wonderful, blah, blah, blah. But you're not giving them anything to leave with. Like it's nice to validate things,
mhm.
it's nice to validate things for people, but how are you, I look at every reading like, how am I actually helping you change your life? How am I actually helping you potentially make a change in something that you're doing? Like it's more powerful, instead of just saying, oh, I feel like your ex is going to come back. It's more powerful to say, like, this is why you keep falling into the same patterns. This is why the same mistakes keep happening. This is why, like, letting people recognize their patterns and what needs to be changed to make their life better. That's something, that awareness is so much and could change so much. So awareness is really important. It's not our job as readers to make decisions for people, but it is our job to, direct that intuition so that people can see where they're falling short and where they're not leading. So that way they can choose to pick up the pieces or continue on. Because sometimes when you see something, it's much easier. You can't unsee it,
Right.
unless you actually try to avoid it. You can't unsee it. So, you know, connecting the dots for people sometimes is, well, all the time is very powerful. And if they choose to run with that. So those are more of the readings that I enjoy doing. And that's why I also started directing my intuition when it came to teaching business and teaching people to flourish in business, because a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs think that they have to be broke or they can't charge certain things, or but when you're making if you're intentional with your reading and you direct your intuition differently, where they can make a really, really positive change in their life, in their business, in their income, that's worth so much to people to be able to do that. So that's why I really enjoy teaching that, because I used to be one of those people like, oh my God, I can't charge a lot. But it was because I was just seeing what came to me. But when I started directing it and really fixing a problem, that's where I started seeing the value, more of the value in
Sure.
what I was doing. So,
Yeah, no, no, 100%. And so how did you find you had this gift, right? A lot of us, think it's outside of us, but it actually anybody could do it, as you've taught for years. But how did
yeah.
you find, or how did you validate that you had the
Okay.
gift?
So, yeah, everyone is psychic, everyone is intuitive, and then it's just about like honing in on that skill and learning. And just like a baseball player picks up a bat and swings it, and they could be naturally good at it, but then they have to perfect their skill and get better and better and better. So it's just about perfecting what you already know. Some people are just so natural at being able to really see through the bullshit and and tap into everything. So for me, when I always kind of just knew stuff, so I was kind of one of those people. I always kind of knew stuff. People would always come to me for advice and just for me to like listen and just to vent to. And I would always come out with these things where I was like, wow, that was really good. It didn't sound like it was coming from me, but I think we've all had those moments before. So that happened. And then as I got older, I got married and my husband was diagnosed with brain cancer, and fortunately he's in remission. He's wonderful. And that's when my gifts really started expanding and coming out to the point where I
I,
couldn't
I remember that.
avoid it anymore. And I kind of just dove into it because I seem to get bored very quickly with things if they're not feeding my soul in some way. And I always said I was like, the guy that I meet that I'm with for over a year is going to be the person I marry. And it was. And then I said, whatever occupation or hobby or something that I find that I enjoy for over a year is going to be what I do for the rest of my life. And it was. And that's just kind of how my life has gone, because I know very early on if I don't want something or if I'm not into it or if I know it's going to be short term, or I kind of always knew that stuff. So throughout my
Right,
life,
you
even
have that
before.
intuitive. I mean, we all have that.
Mhm.
That what
Yeah.
some people call that gut check, right?
Hmm.
That I knew it in my gut this was going to happen. I knew in my
Yep.
gut, you know, um,
You can't avoid
and
that. It's
yeah,
always
and
right.
sometimes it's not. Yeah, and sometimes it's not foreshadowing. It's but there's also like right the unconscious bias, like oh, we make it happen, but
Exactly.
so there's that fine balance. But
Well, you can make it happen. Like, people seem to think, people hide behind divine timing a lot, and divine timing exists, but the facade that it has is like people use it as an excuse sometimes. And because people will be like, oh, well, you know what? um it's gonna like this is gonna happen when it's supposed to happen, when I have the money or when I have the time, or when you create time for the things that you want to do. You can create the money for the things that you want to do. Like, you have to move. Like, when you move, spirit moves. If you stay still, spirit stays still. Like, you have to move. Like, forward motion is the most important thing that you can do. So some people like, well, to start, like if you're taking all the action that you can to move forward, yeah, divine timing, it will happen for you, but you have to move in order to make it happen. Some people just sit there and use it as an excuse for not wanting to do something,
Right.
or I'm doing everything I know how to do, but still nothing's working. No, you keep doing the same things over and over and they're not working. You have
And
to
part of
learn new things.
yeah,
Hmm.
and part of it is you have to do the work. So you
Yeah.
can't, I can't just sit here and go divine timing is going to happen and
Hmm.
XYZ results that I want and just wait
Right.
for the universe or spirit to do it. You have to meet them halfway. You have to,
So
you can't just go to church and play on your phone the whole time. If you're going to be in church, you have to
be
be
there.
in church, right? You have to be there. You have to be doing the things that you do.
Yeah. So many times, like God sends us a lifeboat, and people are like, no, we're good,
Yeah.
because they're waiting for the way that they feel like it's supposed to happen. But sometimes it just happens so far out of that, out of that realm. So, like if people pray for, people pray for like time with their like to get along better with their kids or their spouse or have a better relationship with a friend. But spirit doesn't just make that happen. They create opportunities for you to make it happen. And sometimes people can't humble themselves enough to be like, okay, this is an opportunity. We have to look at everything as an opportunity. It's really important. They give us ways because we have free will. So they can't just be like, okay, everything's working out the way you want it to. They don't get like people pray for money and it's like, you know, the like spirit's giving you opportunities to make money. They're not just like, here's $1 million, well, sometimes with the lottery, but like like a spirit creates opportunities for us. And so many times we're like, no, we're good. No, we're good because we don't want to do the work. Like so many like spiritual entrepreneurs, and this used to be me too. So I'm not making fun of anybody. This used to be me too. But how many times as a spiritual person have you sat around a fire, wrote down your intentions, threw them in the fire, and said, I let it go. Like everything's gonna be better. I moved on, right? And people think that's the work, but they're so wrong because that's where the work starts.
Right.
That doesn't mean the work is done. Like throwing something in a fire doesn't change everything. You change everything, so that's you recognizing the issue. That's you recognizing what needs to be changed. But now the work starts where you actually either choose to change it or keep it the same. And that's where all these loops are with people. If throwing something in a fire changed everything, we'd all be
Well, right, right.
in
We
much
all have
different
bonfires every
situations.
night. I
Exactly.
mean, that's the thing is, like I get it. You can't win the lotto without not putting it, doing
Hmm.
it. But that can't be your retirement plan. That can't
Hmm.
be your future plan. And you work with a lot of entrepreneurs
I
to,
do.
and that's where the core of your business goes.
Hmm.
How do you even just let the entrepreneurs even when they come to you, everybody thinks they're going to make $1 million, that they're going to be, that's it, they can retire, they can do all these extravagant things, and they can, but it's
Hmm.
also about saving, right? You're not going to buy that $1 million house on the first week.
You know,
How do you
yeah, it's about investing properly. So and that is something I talk to clients about when they get to a certain place in business. Yeah, I show them how to invest, where to put their money, but it's different for each person because, everyone has different things that they want, different goals, there's different factors that go into everything, but the bulk of my clients that I work with are trying to, just like get the ball rolling.
right?
Usually, I do have some clients who are already successful and already making money, and we help them go further with that. But yeah, like that's really important. And it's more not it's about your mindset around saving. I'm not telling people like you shouldn't save, but it's your mindset around saving. Like Are you saving because you don't feel like you're going to have this, you're not going to keep making this money? Are you holding on to everything because you're afraid to spend it?
Right.
Or are you holding on to it because it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to buy this or I'm growing my bank account. Like, what's your intention? I believe in being very intentional with what you do with what you're doing and making decisions kind of in that way.
Yeah, well, I think that's what it
Yeah.
is. A lot of that is the intention in knowing what you want to do.
Right. And
The end is important to know, but it can't. The end is just your North Star. It's going to get
right.
adjusted along the way,
Hmm.
and yeah, but you have to also do some of the hard work. You have to
You do.
build it up. Building
Mhm.
clientele is not easy.
Yeah, like I'll tell you, a fun story. So when I had an attachment to struggle. Like that was a really big
Mhm.
thing with me where I would make money and then I would spend it all, but not like going shopping and all the stuff, but like I would spend it on bills or potential bills or put money, like everything towards something where I would make tens of thousands of dollars and within days it's gone. I can't even buy coffee, you know. So I would do that because and when you do that, you're kind of manifesting like all of a sudden like, oh God, I have to pay $3,000 for like a dental visit, or oh my God, like all these extra things start coming because the universe sees that your attachment to struggle, you can't hold on to money. So they keep giving every time you get money, you get reasons to put it somewhere or
Mhm.
do something with it, right? And some people look at it as like, thank God I always have what I need. And that's how I was looking at it. Well, like, spirit always provides when I need something, but no, spirit was like, you're used to not having money, so we're making you not have money.
Right.
And I was looking at the message differently. So sometimes like, spirit shows you in that way too, the things that, the things that you need to do, but you have to look at everything very abundantly, like, oh, well, I'm always going to have it. It's always there. And when you could actually like keep the money in your account, that's really fulfilling for some people because they never were able to do that. So my goal for myself, because it's very individualized how you handle money, but how you treat money is how money is going to treat you and how it's going to show up for you. If you believe that you should be abundant and you have everything you need when you need it, it's all going to be there. But if you're attached to struggle like I was, you are gonna, you're gonna get money and it's gonna leave immediately because you're not going to be
Yeah.
able to hold on to it. So everyone's struggle with it is a little bit different. But when you learn what that is for you and you could see it, that's when everything starts changing. And like, for instance, like you should always, like, if you know you're supposed to go in a direction, your gut's telling you, like we were talking about the gut feeling, like when we know that we should go in a certain direction, I say move, I say move with it. Um, you know, when I moved across country and my business like plummeted. And when I was here, I had this coaching program that I wanted to take because I was more just intuitive and I was very successful just being intuitive, but I always kept the business as like a separate entity. Right. So when you combine your intuition and business, it is so freaking powerful. And I wanted to learn to do that. So I hired a coach and I started working with them. And it was so crazy because it was like my last $10,000. And I was like, I told my husband, I said, all right, we could either get by for like another month or two, or I can invest this and I could learn more and grow more. So he was like, do it, invest it. So I said, okay. And I put $10,000 into a coaching program and I looked at it as like, this has to work. Like, there is no other way. It would be crazy for this not to work because it has to work. And I went into it with that attitude, like this is going to work for me. And I did everything. And it's more than just doing it, it's feeling it too. And I did it, and within 3 days of selling, I made $17,000. So I made my investment back plus more. And it's been like that ever since. Um, and it was just it was so cool and I learned so much. And then my income started getting very inconsistent again. Some months it would be wonderful. And then some months I'm like, oh my God, I need coffee, So, and it was up and down again. So I was like, why isn't this like sustaining? Like if I know how to do it once, I should be able to do it all the time.
Right.
And then I hired another coach who absolutely wonderful. And she is showing me how to be consistent with it. And she has been wonderful. And she helped me help my clients better, help them differently and more intentionally. And I feel like that's the way it should be. So because there's a difference, like anyone could make money, lose money, make money, lose money, and everything goes up and down in life. But if you want a more sustained income or a more sustained lifestyle, if you want to do anything that's sustained, you have to get rid of those cycles or those loops that we go through. Because sometimes we go through something where we're so happy, and then all of a sudden our energy just plummets, right? And we go around. But if you want to sustain something, I learned how to do that, and I learned how to teach other people how to do that as well, because everyone's different. So what works for some person isn't going to work for everybody. So that's why I really enjoy one-on-one mentorships, because it really gets individualized towards the specific person. So that's really where I do like to work.
Yeah, and you've just mentioned, I mean, about mentorship,
Hmm.
which is a lot different than coaching, right? Coaching. I've always said you send in plays, you tell them what to do, which is not your style. It's more like I'll teach you, again, which is that old saying, if you teach a man to fish, they'll
Hmm.
eat for the rest of their lives. It's a
Yeah.
person, not
It,
just a man.
well, the difference between coaching and mentorship, like coaching is more short term. Like you have like a quick result.
Hmm.
Like you give someone like a quick result. Mentorship is more, this shit takes time. Like let's learn
Right.
it. Let's build a really beautiful foundation, because if you build your house on a rocky foundation, your house is going to fall. And that's what I learned, because I was doing coaching. And people were getting results. They were getting fast results, but then after the coaching was over, it was hard for them to sustain it on his own. The same thing that happened to me when I took that coaching program. It was like, I got great results, but it was rocky. And then when I started, and I did say my new coach, but I meant my mentor, I should say, when I
Yeah.
started with her, it was, and I still work with her, and it's like, everything gets more sustained that way. And I'm building, like, what I was trying to build took a little longer, but it's not wobbling anymore. Like my energy doesn't wobble anymore. So, or at least very less often. So it's important to just build that strong foundation. Some people just want a quick fix or a quick result. And a lot of my clients, they will get fast results. It just depends on how fast you move. But the part that you can't teach is for them to actually
Right,
feel it.
believe it. Yeah, right.
Hmm.
If you don't believe it, I
Yeah.
mean, it's one of those things when you do horseback riding. I
Hmm.
remember uh, one of my daughters did horseback riding, and before you move the horse, you have to look that way, and
Hmm.
that's why you have to see it. If you can't see yourself doing it, and the same thing when you were talking about money,
Hmm.
like I know it always comes to me.
Yeah.
I always am going to be fine,
Hmm.
and truthfully, that takes one level of stress off of me,
Hmm.
and that's one of those powerful things is knowing it and not having to worry about it. It's that want and need. And so when you work with mentors, and you are a mentor,
Hmm.
that's a responsibility.
It's a big
So
responsibility. Yeah. You're not only, you're working in someone's psyche too, because I'm an intuitive, I'm a mentor for intuitives. I use my intuition to work with people. So you're working in someone's psyche too. So you have to be, really sure of what you're saying and the information that you're giving them, because people take it, whatever way they take it. But, there's a lot of responsibility in it as well. And, people think like they come to a mentor and they're like, okay, I'm going to make money, and they take the responsibility off themselves too. But you have to take responsibility for your own healing, for your own success, for your own, declines. Like you have to take responsibility for that too. Like never play the victim in anything that you're doing,
right,
because you become a victim to your circumstances, and that doesn't help you or anyone around you. So yeah, it's really, really important to, um, really know what you're doing. And people are going to believe what comes out of their mouth, not necessarily what comes out of your mouth. So as a mentor, I feel like it's my job to ask the right questions. So intuitively, I tell spirit to help me like ask them the right questions that are going to give them the realizations or those
Mm.
aha moments, the things that are going to really hit deep for them and like cause that deep soul work to be done. So those are the things that I intentionally ask when I'm working with spirit, when I'm working and mentoring somebody is like, what questions do I need to ask to get them to have that aha moment, have that realization that is going to help propel them forward and transform everything for them. We have like so many gifts, like we all have gifts. And I'll just use my niche as an example, but people could be mediums and healers and psychics, but like what makes somebody come to you when there's so many other people that do it? There's so many people in this occupation, even if you're a doctor or you run a podcast, like, why are you different? Why are you different from everybody else? And it's because of your uniqueness, right? And a lot of people are so close to themselves that they don't know why they're unique. If you ask anybody, like, what makes you special? They're like, I don't know, and it's a hard question. It's a simple question, but it's a hard question.
Yeah, because we
And
sometimes don't
mhm,
realize,
mhm,
like again, you know me long enough. You're like, Dave,
mhm,
you're really so special. I'm like,
mhm,
okay, yeah, what makes me special? And
mhm.
that's the part is because some things are so innate in ourselves. It's just what we
Mhm.
do.
Right,
That Uncle Dave stuff that I do. It's just what I do. I don't go out of my way. I don't go, oh, this is going to get some good feedback.
right.
Some of this stuff is works and some of it doesn't.
Hmm.
And, knowing the difference really becomes part of that lesson and that learning that we do. How do
Yeah,
you
and
share that with clients? Yeah.
yeah, so it's funny. I was just going to say that. Like yeah, when I'm working with somebody, I could really see their gifts within their gifts, and then there's more gifts that come along. The longer we work together, the more because you have to like, when you could see your gifts within your gifts that you're too close to see when those are brought out, you see the uniqueness in how you work, and all of a sudden there's no competition anymore. Like there's nobody that you're like, oh, well, I don't understand why I can't do what they do because they do it. Like everyone does
Right.
it a little bit differently. Everyone picks up on different information, different things. That's why, there's so many doctors out there, but then there's specialists. Why is everybody not a specialist? So there's just so many things. There are general doctors and then there's a specialist. And it's the same thing in this work. There's psychics and there's mediums, but then there's ones that specialize in things, and those are the ones that stand out. Those are the ones you seek out when you need something in that realm.
Mhm.
So we all have something that we do that stands out, and a lot of people are too close to see what makes them unique. So that's part of the thing. So I help you see what's unique within you, and then I help you really harness that power, and that makes you stand out. And that level of expertise is that precision is what people pay for. So I teach you to hone in on your gifts and really use it in a really powerful way where you can lead, and that is where I feel like all the power is in your businesses and your uniqueness. Otherwise, you're, you're just setting prices that are price competing with other companies, or you, you're trying to blend in with everybody when really what you should be doing is trying to stand out because everyone
Right.
has something unique about them, no matter what they do.
Yeah, and that's where, why I've been the past 3 days this is like the third, fourth
Mhm.
time. Uh, we shouldn't use AI as much. Like AI can give us some ideas if you're stuck. I don't mind
Mhm.
that, but the AI, if you're working with people, you need that human touch. You need that personalized touch. That's what something like you and I bring to people. That's why I've been saying to people, I guarantee you, when you sit with me, you'll never find somebody like me. I don't know if that's good or bad, but
Yeah.
that's a different
It's
story.
good. No, see, like AI is a very helpful tool. I use AI for for some things when it comes to content, but it makes you sound like everybody else. So you have to really program it with your own ideas and your own, because the only thing that AI can do a lot of things that people can do, but AI can't create ideas. they're using ideas that other people have put in there. So your own creativity and putting your own spin on AI
Yeah.
is what's going to make it stand out and just like, just sound, maybe sound a little better. But people have AI like putting courses together for them and because they don't know what to do. And they're like, whenever I create something with AI, like I put in all my own ideas, I create all my own stuff, and then I tell them like, spruce it up a little bit, make it sound better, or,
Right.
because
Right. Grammatically, yeah.
I
As
write
an
like I
editor. Yeah.
I write like I talk. So it's just like,
Me too.
sometimes you want to sound a little bit more professional, but it's all my own ideas and all my own things. So, if you use, AI where you're the creator and they're just like you said, like the editor, then, I believe it could be very helpful. It can cut work in half, but don't let it do the thinking for you because it can't,
Right.
and that's where you blend in and you don't stand out. So,
Right. Right. It's the same thing with the spirit, right? Spirit won't do all the work for you. You
nope,
have
they'll
to
give
meet
you
it
stuff.
halfway.
They'll give you, yeah, spirit will give you information. Some people just sit there and wait for information to come and it comes. But what really gets it better is asking more questions. Spirit's going to give you, they're very literal. They're going to give you exactly what you asked for. So, you have to ask more questions. You have to ask the right questions. You have
Yeah.
to use your brain.
That
Um,
that was
you
my
know,
challenge. I didn't always
mhm.
ask the right questions with
Yeah,
spirit. And when I did, then I was able to get the answers I needed. That's why I was always
yeah.
able to do better readings for somebody else than for
Hmm.
myself.
Yep. Yeah, because sometimes you're too close to it. Like
Right.
you can't see your own gifts. You can't
Yeah.
do that either. Because some people are like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna try doing that, and then I'm gonna come back, and I'll get help with this. I'm like, all right, do whatever you want to do, But then they always come back because they're like, all right, I can't do it. And and my thing with people, like my goal is to not have you work with me forever. Like I want
Right.
you to achieve your goal and get to where you have to go, and then you could either learn more with me or you could go on your own and now you can do it. Because once you know how to do it and you know how to sustain it, you can do it, and you could always go back to it. So, but there are some things that people need support. Like, I have a mentor, I'm a mentor, but I have a mentor as well
Sure, you have to.
because
Yeah.
you need that. And when I find what works, I stay with that person. There's just so much, and a good mentor is always going to intentionally keep learning and keep growing in some way. So like you get to a point where it's like, okay, what else do I teach? And then you have to keep learning more. Because that's part of your growth process too. So I've always had mentors and I've always had the same mentors because if it's not broken, why fix it?
Yeah,
So
no, that's how I looked at it. If I like it, if I feel that I've outgrown my mentor, which
hmm
has not happened because I've always
hmm
chosen really good mentors, and you've been a great
yeah.
mentor. There's a
Oh,
lot of
thank
stuff that
you.
you've given me
hmm
over the years that I'm like, oh, I never even saw that. I didn't,
hmm
that's why having the right people in your circle are so
Yeah.
important.
I agree. I agree. And yeah, I had my first mentor until she passed away. Pat Longo was like,
Mhm.
oh my God, she was like the mother of all like spiritual people. And she was absolutely wonderful. She was such like a guiding light for me throughout my entire journey, and when she passed, I was like, oh, like I lost a friend. I lost so much when she passed, but I was so blessed to have worked with her for as long as I did. I worked with her for probably about 16 years.
Wow.
And she was everything and she showed me, all my mentors showed me like different things. And she showed me so much. She showed me where I was so capable when I never thought I was. And she made me believe in myself. She showed me how special I was, and her encouragement helped me do this for as long as I've been doing this. And then along the way, I met Brad Frazensky, and he's like the inner work guy. He did a lot of mindset
Yeah.
work and stuff. And I was like, I never realized how screwed up I was until I started working with him. I was like, oh my God, I thought I had my stuff together. But, I went to him like thinking, okay, I'm learning mediumship and then I get a TV show. Like that's how it goes. And he was like, but it turned into so much more than that. I was so like, I was so much in like the infancy stages of all of it because I didn't understand it fully. And then when I learned, I ended up finding, a business mentor, Charlotte LeBeauberg, and she's someone I've been working with for a while now and will continue to. She's stuck with me, and she is like, she's like a double threat because not only does she know her shit in business, but she also is very intuitive as well. So she kind of connects both things that I need. So she is wonderful too. So those are all my mentors, and I went to classes here and there and things, but those are
Well,
like my staples.
right, constant learning and stuff like that. I got to reach out back out to Brad. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but
Yeah,
he's
he said
wonderful.
hi.
Oh, okay, great. I'll reach back out to him. I'd love to hear him also. I mean, again, I've had people who I've had deep conversations with over the years. I love to support. So we're about rounding up. But so what I'd like to do is I always ask everybody, let's walk into the magic garden. Imagine a garden that you could leave like a seed. So a piece of information, a piece of things that might not grow right away that somebody else could grow, or a really good nugget of advice you would give.
So the best thing I could tell people is if they're working towards something, you have to always work towards it. Like you always have forward motion is the way to change your life, no matter how small or big it is. And how I made every decision was asking myself before I ate anything, before I drank anything, before I made any uh made any moves doing anything. It was like, all right, this helping or hurting my goal? So that question really helped me make very conscious choices and conscious decisions. So is what I'm about to do going to help my goal or hurt it? So if you could be conscious of that, you're going to make much better choices and make much more intentional decisions for what you're doing.
Okay, that's
So
awesome.
that's my biggest piece of
I,
advice.
I think that's great advice, and
Mhm.
so thank you so much for
You're
your time,
welcome.
and you'll definitely have you on again because you gave us a lot of good advice and understanding as well as uh some business coaching,
Thank you.
some of the stuff that you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I had fun.
Oh, what other thing I did forget?
Mhm.
How could they contact you? Obviously, they can contact me,
Oh,
but I'd love for them to contact you.
sure. Well, they can contact me through my website, where it's all my contact information, all my social media is on there. So it's just my name, DanielleAnatra.com. And all my social media is pretty much the same too, Danielle Anatra. If they
Yep.
look that up, that's my name on everything pretty much. But all that information is also on my website. So that's the best place.
Okay, yeah, and that's obviously something I'm going to put in the description anyway. But it's always good to hear it from your
Hear
mouth.
from me. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, thank you, and everybody else. Thank you as always. I wish you peace and love in your life, whatever that means to you. And when you bring a bat, remember bringing awesome thoughts. I hope you have lots of awesome thoughts and you hit your sweet spot. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.